If you want to sell a bunch of toys and t-shirts and hats, maybe you look at PG-13 because you're going to get more kids. But if you're just looking to entertain people for 2 hours in a dark room called the theater, you can go R and it'll work.
Welcome to Watch Mojo's Poppin the Culture, the show that celebrates all things entertainment. And me, well, I'm your host. It's Mr. Hollywood himself, Matt Demers. Today, I'll be sharing part 2 of my exclusive interview with Todd McFarlane. That's right, Todd's going to be spilling all the latest details on that newly announced Salmon Twitch TV show and the highly anticipated Blumhouse Spawn reboot film. Trust me, there is so much to get excited about in the House of McFarlane. But first, well, let's check out those Hollywood headlines. All right, and here to help me break down all the latest out there in La La Land, why he's a very familiar face and voice at Watch Mojo. Why, it's Ricky Tucci joining us. Ricky, how are you?
Hello. I'm fantastic. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing great, and I'm glad you're joining me today to chat about these topics. Today, actually, we're focusing on one topic, okay?
Right.
The big one.
The big one. Yeah.
So much going on. Are you ready for this? Marvel's
I am.
Phase 4. It's underway. We are in full swing of Marvel's Phase 4. Before we get into it,
Yes.
I know you do mostly video game stuff on the Watch Mojo. Where do you lie with your movie taste? Are you a superhero guy, Marvel guy?
Yeah, I've watched almost all of them in theaters. So I've been following this for since 2008 with Iron Man. So I've been following all the movies. I'm up to date. I've got all the TV shows on Disney Plus up to date. So I'm very much into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's been a big part of my life. I've always been a huge Spider-Man fan, like I think a lot of people are. So that kind of is what propelled me with the Sam Raimi movies, really getting into superheroes. And then it just kind of, the MCU just took it to the next level. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
Your favorite of the bunch? Is it Spider-Man?
Yeah, it's Spider-Man. There's no contest. I think a lot of young guys see themselves in Spider-Man, right? Like he's this kind of every kid who he's into science. He's a bit nerdy, a little bit awkward, but like at the end of the day, he's got a heart of gold and he wants to do the right thing. So he's just like such a great character to resonate with.
I see myself in Bruce Wayne mostly. That's my okay.
I mean, that's great.
Here's what I'm going to do, Ricky. I'm going to go through some of the upcoming stuff. Let's get excited. Let's tell people what's on the horizon because there's a lot, and then we'll break it down with you and see which ones you're excited about, or if you have any thoughts in particular. Yeah. So you mentioned the Disney Plus TV shows. So already WandaVision, massive hit. Did you see the whole thing? I loved it. Loved it. I thought it was such an original. I don't know. I don't follow the comics, so I won't really be deep on that end. But like the story was just so good. Introducing Wanda in her powers in that way, I just thought was such a fresh take. It was very mind bending, which I just love. So like huge success. Really, very very impressive debut on Disney Plus for Marvel on that end. Yeah, and it's my favorite of the bunch so far. And I'm a TV geek, so that played well into that. Yeah. We have Loki, which is ongoing now. Oh, I skipped over Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Right.
So those
that was another great one. Great.
They're all, I mean, honestly, when it comes to Marvel, they rarely miss. So even if you're saying, no, they could improve, it's mainly nitpicking. Okay, here's the big one. Black Widow. This is the movie that's we've been waiting for. Ricky, I've seen it and I loved it.
I have it.
It's really great.
That's good. That's great. I'm happy to hear that because there's been some backlash, and I think you can maybe talk about who spoke out on it recently.
Okay, listen. Well, first off, let me just say this is a standalone movie, and people were like, "Does it need to exist?" Right? Because we know the fate of the Black Widow character. Who cares? Right. It's a great movie. And you know what it does? Does? It introduces some really cool characters that I think are going to be sticking around. So Florence Pugh, I'm in love, by the way. I'm in love. If you're listening and watching, Florence, don't tell my wife, but call me. Okay. Let's talk about the news because Stephen Dorff, is that a name that people know? Well, he's an actor. He's been around for a long time. Listen, he's done some interesting movies. He was actually in Blade with Wesley Snipes way back when, and now he's saying he's embarrassed for Scarlett Johansson because she's in this movie. He basically took a a big you know what on Marvel films, and says he's embarrassed for Scarlett. Your take?
First off, you don't have to be embarrassed for Scarlett Johansson. Okay, there's no embarrassment to be had. It's Scarlett Johansson. So I'll just say that right off the bat. Like she's like her career is immaculate. Okay, she's been acting forever. So I think that's just a bit of a null and void comment off the bat. Number two, like look, Scorsese said it. There is fatigue with the cinematic universe. You know, people are fed up of seeing Disney and Marvel just pump out these movies. But what I'll say is that I think that Marvel does it at such a they have such consistently good stories throughout all of their series that it's not like they're pumping out really crappy movies and people are enduring it and the quality is suffering. Fine, not everything is going to be, you know, an Infinity War, but it doesn't have to be, right? You can tell compelling stories in film the way that they're going to do with Black Widow and the rest of Phase 4. You can do that, and it doesn't have to, you know, it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be perfect at the end of the day. It has to be fun. The acting has to be good. The CGI is always good. Like it always works together. So I understand the criticism of the big Marvel and Disney machine, but I get it comes down to if you enjoy, you know, the cinematic universe and if you want to see those stories told or not. For me, I absolutely want to see it told. Like I want them to keep going because they keep putting out such great stuff. And Disney Plus has really been a huge success. And I think where a lot of their success is going to come from in the future is putting out these series that are literally the quality of movies.
Yeah.
So,
you know, yeah, I agree.
To that, yeah.
I 100% agree. And I think, and Scorsese, going back to him, with his comments, he hadn't even seen the Marvel movies. He was criticizing something that he hadn't seen. And by the way, I love Scorsese movies. I think there's room for everything, buddy. But Marvel does it great. Okay, I'm moving on because there's a lot. What If is a TV show, an animated show coming to Disney Plus. This is kind of, I don't know if this will really fit into the storyline, but it's an interesting concept, Ricky, where it's going to be different takes on the mythos that we're familiar with. So it'd be like, I don't know, what if Peter Parker became the Hulk? That's not an official storyline. That's just an example. Yeah. So that's interesting.
I think that's so cool. I think that they need to do kind of fun things like that, and put these characters in different scenarios and different worlds, and just again, it's a cartoon, right? It's not a live action thing. It's probably not. It's not canon. So I think it's just really fun to explore the animated side of Marvel as well. Like I want to see more. They do great live action, but I want to see more of that animated stuff coming out. That's true. I know Spider-Verse isn't necessarily Marvel, but look how cool that and good that was. So Absolutely. More stuff like that. Yes.
Yeah, I think DC has them beat on the animated front. Okay, moving on. Shang-Chi. This is another one that we're excited about, coming out September 3rd of this year. Fingers crossed. But yeah, it's the Legend of the Ten Rings. Have you seen the trailer for this? It's out. It looks fun. He's fighting the Abomination, a character we haven't seen since the Incredible Hulk. I don't know. I'm a sucker for like kung fu action stuff, so I'm in.
I'll watch it. I'll watch the shit out of it. I'll watch it. It looks like a lot of fun. I'm again with these movies. I'm not expecting to go in and I'm not expecting a Spider-Man 3 type deal. Like this is an introduction story. It's gonna get us. It's gonna fit him into the cinematic universe. So like I'm down. It's fun. It looks great. No, I don't have crazy expectations, but I think it's gonna hit the nail on the head.
I'm the same as you. My expectations are kind of lukewarm. This next one, I don't know. I would be lying if I said I was even a little bit excited for it, and I know some people are. It's called the Eternals. Okay, and I think and let me just preface this by saying I don't know. I do read a lot of the comics, but I don't know these characters. That the trailer didn't get me intrigued. It's got an interesting cast, but it just doesn't. To me, that didn't grab me. And I said the same thing about Guardians of the Galaxy when that was first announced, and that blew me away. But that was so fun. This doesn't look particularly fun. It looks kind of somber. I don't know. What do you think of the Eternals?
Yeah, I think I'd have to echo your statements. I see the big implications of the Eternals and how it's going to tie into the Phase 4 and kind of the world beyond what we know in terms of Thanos and who's the most powerful in the universe. So I see it being very important for the backstory of the cinematic universe, but it just doesn't have the same kind of stakes that the other films have, right? The characters, they're new. You haven't really warmed up to them. It kind of reminds me of Inhumans, I guess, in the same vein as that. Like it's a separate kind of group of all powerful beings that preside over the universe, but like there's no real connection to them. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's going to be great. Maybe it'll tie everything and it'll be like a backbone of phase 4. But for right now, I'm on the same page. Like, it's got great actors, don't get me wrong, but I'm not like foaming at the mouth to see it, you know?
If you do start foaming at the mouth, I'll call somebody for you. Ricky, I'm going to skip ahead because there is a lot. You know, you've got your Hawkeye series coming Disney Plus. There's a Miss Marvel, which is actually exciting, but I'm going to go do one of your favorites that you mentioned at the top, Spider-Man. No Way From Home. Here's what that movie's got me really excited because, well, there's a lot going on. By the way, did you see Zendaya and Tom Holland?
Yeah. I don't know if that's publicity or what, but they're doing a good job. I don't know what it is. It might be real, it might not be, but whatever it is, it's got people talking, and that's the point, I think.
And my girl said the same thing. She's like, "That's publicity." I'm like, "No, they're not. It's not publicity."
I hope so. I really hope so.
Yeah, I was rooting for Rebecca, our Watch Mojo lady, and Tom Holland to hook up. But...
Right. Yes.
Okay, but here, let's talk about the movie because listen, the rumor mill is exploded because Tobey Maguire coming back. You've got Andrew Garfield. Is he coming back? Is he not? I
don't know.
Jamie Foxx's Electro. Doc Ock, they're saying, from the original actor. Listen.
Right.
I have a theory. I've kind of borrowed this theory from what I read online. I can't take full credit.
Okay.
But at the end of the last Spider-Man film, he's announced to the public his identity, right? J. Jonah Jameson.
Right,
yeah. So it looks like in this one, he's going to be on the run, right? Now that his identity is out there. So what I've heard, and I like this idea, is that he goes for help to Doctor Strange or somebody else. And
Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah. And he's kind of put in different multiverses to kind of hide. And it's there that he encounters Spider-Man from his past. So I think, that would be fun if he's kind of hopping from different movies.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. Okay. We've been hearing this rumor a long time now that there's going to be, 3 different Spider-Mans, different universes. And it's starting to come together when you look at, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which is going to be coming out, right? Multiverse is confirmed. Even in Spider-Man Far From Home, we get that talk between Peter and Quentin Beck about alternate universes, which it didn't really pan out, but they're dropping the hints. So I'm hoping that Marvel really does this, where it brings all of these old Spider-Men together. And it is kind of like the Spider-Verse, another kind of nod to the multiple universes happening. And Peter does get to meet them, and they all kind of come together, and all different time. Again, it's all keeping with the same tone of like, this is going to be a multi-timeline, multi-universe big thing. It's gonna be bigger than Infinity War. And if Spider-Man No Way Home sets that up, man, I'm gonna be one happy camper. I can tell you that.
All right, before we move on from the MCU phase 4, who's your favorite Spider-Man? Your favorite actor to portray Spidey?
Oh man, it is so hard to pick one of these, because obviously Tobey was the one, he was the one, right? He was the first, he was the greatest. So Tobey will always be in my heart. Andrew Garfield's great too, because he does his own stunts. He's got the look as well. He's kind of skinny, nerdy.
Yeah, I thought that too.
But Tom Holland, Tom Holland, maybe it's because of the Iron Man, paternal kind of love there. Maybe it's the MCU. Tom Holland's just like the all-encompassing Spider-Man, right? He's the young guy. I like that they didn't go straight for the origin story. The cast is great. All the characters work together. So Tobey always in my heart, but in terms of like pure entertainment and joy, I think like when I first saw Spidey, and I think it was Civil War, I was just beaming ear to ear. So yeah, Tom Holland, just a little bit. Tobey, I still love you. And Andrew was great, obviously, but yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I echo exactly what you said. All right, Ricky, don't go anywhere. I need you to stick around. Before we move on, I do want to know what you out there think. Does the MCU Phase 4 have you excited? Which movie in particular? Drop it in the comments and let us know. Ricky, for us, it's time to go beyond the list. All right, Ricky, what I've done is I've gone through Watch Mojo's vast archives and pulled out a list that I want you to help me go beyond with. So we'll have some extra comments, some insights, your thoughts as always. So today, this is fun. Like I mentioned at the top, you do mostly the video game commentaries and top 10 lists. This is top 10 video game adaptations nobody asked for.
No one. Yeah.
There is there is so many video game adaptations that come out. A lot of them good. Hey, listen, you got to tie in your movie, you got to tie in your show or your comic, whatever. Some of them we didn't need.
Yeah.
Hey, do you actually play a lot of video games? You do the top 10s. Do you actually do a lot of gaming?
I'm a very heavy gamer. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very, very, very heavy gamer. Yeah.
Before we get into
maybe.
well, before we get into ones that we're not going to recommend, give us one that you do recommend right now. What's one that people might want to check out?
So Sonic, I think, was really fun. Jim Carrey is great as Eggman. I think that's a really fun movie, a good one to jump into. And the latest Mortal Kombat movie, I haven't watched it because I just don't care about fighting movies. But I heard it got a lot of really good reviews, and from the trailers, it looks very good. So I think those are you're starting to see some of the newer ones coming out, and they're starting to get it right because they just haven't. It's kind of like superhero movies, right? It took a while for them to hit their stride and to get good, and now video games. You're slowly starting to see it. HBO, these companies are starting to produce not just like movies, but series. So yeah, those are the two that I recommend if you're starting out. But
nice.
I think there's more things coming, good things coming.
Nice. All right. So this list, adaptations nobody asked for. So we're looking at gaming related tie-ins that nobody wanted, but we all got anyways. Okay, here we go. I'll go through the list, and at the end, I'll get your thoughts, Ricky. Number 10 was Hitman Agent 47. This was based on a movie in 2013. You had number 9, Shaq Fu, based on Shaquille O'Neal doing Kung Fu, 1994. Number 8, Little Britain, the video game. Little Britain was a British TV show, 2007, that came out. Number 7, Worlds of Power, Metal Gear, okay, 1990. Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within. So many Final Fantasies. Did we need that one? No. Resident Evil Extinction. I'll say the same for that. Mass Effect Deception, 2012. That brings us to number 3, Bubsy. Obscure.
Holy crap.
Yeah, 1993. Number 2 is Street Fighter the movie with
classic.
Jean-Claude Van Damme, I believe, was in that.
The Muscles from Brussels, yes.
Of course he was.
That's the guy.
I might as well mention some honorable or dishonorable mentions here. Fight Club. Now that sounds cool. 2004, we had a Fight Club. Catwoman. This being the terrible movie.
Halle Berry. Right, yeah.
That it's based on, yeah. StarCraft Ghost Nova. And number 1, the Uwe Boll video game movies. Uwe Boll being this, just, what did they do? They put out so many. It was just terrible movie / video game adaptations. But there was just so many that we didn't need any of them.
No. Yeah, that's a bad lay. Uwe Boll's infamous forever. He'll never do anything again.
Yeah. Okay. Did you actually play any of these? Did any of these unfortunately end up?
I haven't actually played any of those. I don't think I've played any. Street Fighter, obviously. I haven't really played any of those games. It's funny, the best games just don't get made into movies. Some Metal Gear, I played Metal Gear, but again, not Bubsy, none of that stuff. That's old. A lot of them are old too, right? They're really old games that suck. So you definitely don't want to play an old game that sucks. Anyways, no.
There's one that there's one that's not on the list that I think should be, and it's one that I played. I think it's 90. We're going back to Super Nintendo, folks. It was a Wayne's World game.
Wayne's World, of course.
Swing, all that stuff. Listen, this game was really them just jumping around with their sound effects. It was we didn't need this, but we got it.
It doesn't take much. Yeah, it doesn't take much. Cash grabs.
So it begs the question, do video games make better movies, or do movies make better video games? You touched on it a little bit.
I'm going to say that the right video games make better movies. And we're already seeing that video games are like movies. They've been that way for maybe a little less than a decade now, but really starting with the PlayStation 4 era, which was at like 2013, we saw The Last of Us, which was one of the biggest breakout games for cinematic storytelling gaming, just come on the scene. and kind of blend the mix between gameplay and narrative into this seamless flow that was really beautiful and really just like a great way to say where games were going into the future. They weren't just these like competitive or button mashing or like badly designed kind of game. Like there's a real story here and a lot of depth and a lot of characters. So the right video games can be made into really, really great movies. I just think it's about finding the balance between like what the game presents in terms of story and gameplay, and not like not making it campy. You know, like action games like Lara Croft. We see Tomb Raider as well, which did that. The Tomb Raider movie wasn't bad at all. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad. But like we do have to be careful to like really highlight the story and the characters, and not just focus on the big action. And you know, so depends on the game. But I think the right game with a good script, like Uncharted, with another Tom Holland movie that's going to be coming out soon in the works, I think that could be really, really, really good if the writing is good.
Awesome. Yeah, no. And I'm pitching, I don't know if anyone will pick it up. I'm pitching a Watch Mojo game. It's like
Watch Mojo game.
Yeah. Battle of the Hosts. It's a fighting game. And like you would fight, you know,
I'm ready.
Rebecca
I'm
and
ready.
Phoebe. And
I'm ready.
Yeah. Me and Ashley.
Ready.
It'll be fun. Ricky, speaking of fun, you've been a blast. I would love to have you back on the program.
For sure. Yeah, I'd love to come back and we can discuss whatever, you know, gaming, more entertainment. I'm a man of many different hats, so I'm always open to different discussions.
Amazing. And if you guys out there actually want to watch that list, it was voiced, narrated by the one and only Ricky Tucci. Well, you can click on your screen and check out those those video games that no one asked for. All right, Ricky, thank you so much for being here. It's now time for part 2 of my interview with Todd McFarlane. Okay, let's shift now, Todd. You mentioned something about Sam and Twitch. Now, the big news, of course, is that there's going to be a show. It's going to be put in development. I love me some Sam and Twitch. They're detectives. What can you tell us? We're obviously in the early stages, but I think fans that know these characters, they've been around in the Spawn mythology for a long time. We're all very, very excited because their stories are great. They had their own comic at one point. What can you tell us?
Well, the 2 characters have been there since Spawn #1, so they're sort of 2 core characters that have been there. But because of what was happening in Hollywood during the pandemic, where, I mean, as you know, the theaters got shut down, production got shut down, everything got shut down, that there was lots of time to come up with ideas and, you know, develop and create. And so, you know, I didn't just option Sam and Twitch. We've been talking about it. We went and found some writers, Jason and Todd, who've done some really great stuff. And oh, by the way, if you say their names really fast, they're a comic book character, which is cool. So I'm like, Jason, Todd, they're hired. But you know, if you look at their work and, you know, what they did on things like Condor and Jason on War Dogs and a few other things, and I went, man, I saw those. You're the guy that did those? Man, that's cool. And so we got our take, and then we went back and forth, and both Jason and Todd had, you know, I thought, you know, a pretty cool spot on without being overly loyal. Mm-hmm. You know, because I never want anybody to basically just regurgitate what I've already done. That's not fun. And they came back, and they pitched it, and then we go, okay, let's go see if we can find somebody that will jump on as our producing partners. The people who just recently finished their run on The Mayor of Easttown. So great. Big hit on HBO Max. They stepped up and said, yeah, Todd, cool. So we've got the first pass of the first script in. We're just giving some notes back. We'll get that, and in short order, we're gonna go into the town, and we're gonna see whether anybody wants to do it. Right. So this isn't going to be like a long sort of talk about it like what's been happening with the Spawn movie. This is going to be, we've got the team, we're going to do it. We're going to get a couple scripts sort of done really quick here, and then we're going to go into the city, and we're going to say, hey, here's these great writers, here's their resume, here's the producers of Mayor of Easttown, And then here's a guy who created the Spawn world and has a pretty good track record and had something to do with Venom. You know, if you put all of us together, do you think you'll get something? Right? I'm hoping that at least one of them will say yes.
Yeah.
And say, we could do far worse. Okay, fine, let's go. So the next headline should just be that we've added some components to it and we've sold it, and here's who we sold it to. And maybe even at that point, you know, they've even penciled potentially when we would go into pre-production. So.
Awesome. Creatively, I know it's super early on, but what kind of shows would you liken this to? Is it going to be a gritty kind of detective show?
Yeah. No. When it was interesting because I know that I've been talking to the producers that were doing Mayor of Easttown, you know, specifically a guy by the name of Mark Roybal, and he was one of the exec producers. And I remember every time I was talking to him, he was like, "I'm on the set. You know, we're making this thing." I thought he was saying mayor. All this time I've been talking to him, I thought he was saying the mayor of Easttown. Yeah. So I was like, "What?" When I first saw it the first time, I went, "What? Her name's Mayor?" Yeah. Woo, I had that wrong. But I watched the first one, and I immediately text them back saying, "Dude, we keep talking about Sam and Twitch. I'm telling you, Sam and Twitch can be half of what this show is, just in terms of the mood and the grit and the realism and the somberness, and you know that it just." And part of it is because I like those kinds of shows. I know my wife can only take so much of those shows because then she needs a sitcom to just cleanse her palate. But I can watch sort of serious drama all day long. And part of it is because I do fantasy. So at the end, all I want is reality as much as I can when I'm watching TV, which is drama. So yeah, we're gonna make it as believable, accessible as possible, drama-wise. But there's going to be this bent in it that is like something's moving in the shadows, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Something's moving in the shadows, and in most cases, only the detectives will know, and they can't share that information. Really, they're not going to be able to share it, because like if you and I knew there was like a ghost someplace, who are you and I going to tell? What are we going to do? Go to the New York Times? What, they're going to write an expose? No, they're going to throw us out and tell security never let us back in again. Like you can't be that person. So you're going to be out on your own, right? And history has proven in real life that you never want to be the first person to see something for the very first time, because you're always going to be a kook. Yeah, and then you need somebody to back you up that says, no, a week later, I saw the same thing and I got the evidence for it. But you never want to be the first guy who saw the first giant octopus, right? Or the first giant squid. They both exist. But what do you think happened? I know what happened to the guy who saw the first giant squid is he was a captain, and they stripped him of his boat and they threw him in jail, and he died captainless because they thought he was insane. And then 20 years later, one of the giant squids beached itself, and they went, that's what he was talking about. Oops. He had the misfortune of being the only guy that saw it that day. So anyway, that's the predicament that Sam and Twitch are going to be in.
I love it. And I got my fingers crossed, because I will be tuning in for every second. You mentioned the movie. We'll quickly get to it. Blumhouse, is this still in production? I know we had Jamie Foxx and Jeremy Renner were tentatively attached. Are they still good?
Yeah, everybody. And then we've actually added some people, some talent that we haven't announced during the pandemic. Yeah, so big talent. Wow. But again, everybody just sort of feels like, you know, we've been talking about it for so long, you know, instead of keep putting out teasers and, you know, all this, let's just do our jobs. Let's keep it moving. Let's get it going. I mean, I talked to some of the key people here, and we're supposed to have sort of the next big movement of it, fingers crossed, by the end of July. And then in quick order, if that's all true and we can get to where we're at, we should be going into the studios here before the end of the year. So, you know, it's time, right? I mean, there's momentum. there's momentum with the character. There's momentum, with the streamers wanting to do sort of serious.
And this will be like a R-rated 18 plus. Okay, yeah, because that's a big. I mean, hey, look at your Joker or any number of movies that have that feel.
Yeah, no. I remember being at New York Comic Con the weekend that Joker came out, and I was up on stage going, "Hey, everybody, please go." Because if that movie does even a little bit of business, it will solidify that you can do serious R-rated movies in the superhero vein, and it didn't do a little bit of business. I mean, I was going, man, if this thing makes 135 million, woo, they're going to make R-rated movies, and it goes and makes $1 billion, right?
Yeah, they got Oscar, they got nominations and Oscars, so there you go.
Right, so they completely legitimize the R rating for superheroes, right? If you want to sell a bunch of toys and T-shirts and hats, maybe you look at PG-13 because you're going to get more kids. But if you're just looking to entertain people for 2 hours in a dark room called the theater, you can go R and it'll work.
Because the first Spawn movie, what was it, 1997? Which I had actually rewatched, and I still like it. There's still something about that movie that's fun. I mean, the business has changed, the movie business, and obviously everything else has changed. But at the time, I quite enjoyed that. Have you seen that recently? The Michael J. White?
No, not recently, but I do know that we were under pressure at the end of it. Our deadline got squeezed. There were some scenes we put in there in which we didn't finish the CG, especially like that hell scene at the end.
Yeah.
You go, what? Like, if it doesn't look good, then just do it as a voiceover, right? But
yeah.
So there were some things that we did in there that if I could re-edit it, I'd do it. But there are other things on there that I thought hit and still stand up today, right? And again, remember that was long before sort of the Marvel Universe was coming. So, superhero movies, oh, by the way, a minority character, superhero, like it was still way ahead of the curve. And maybe, with a little more polish and waiting 10 years, we might've been right in the sweet spot. So
John Leguizamo.
Now we have that movie. We have things like R-rated being viable now. And we have, the audience is now 20 years older. So anybody that was even born the day Spawn movie came out is now capable of being in an R-rated theater because you're over 18. It's been longer than 18 years. So you can get into it. So I don't think we have to hold back. The audience from that time is for sure over 18. And then anybody that was born, from that day, even 3-4 years later, are all capable of going to an R-rated movie. I don't think we have to be afraid as long as we don't spend $200 million on a budget.
Yeah, and Spawn screams R-rated. I mean, just play the Mortal Kombat game, and you'll see why. Yeah. But I was going to say
we did at the time the movie came out. At the same time, was the first season of the HBO animated.
Yes,
and that was all R with all the warnings. Yeah. Like drug, sex, rock and roll. I mean, everything was on there. I think we were the only show at that time, for sure the first one that had all the possible ratings and warnings on it, which I was very proud of.
Emmy-winning show.
It wasn't because I wanted to be explicit with it. It was just to say that this is a harsh world, and at times we have to go into those corners. So get ready. We may have to go into some dark corners.
Here in Canada, we have all our HBO content on something called Crave, and they have like different sections. There's something called Best of HBO, and I was on the other night. I'm like, if Spawn the animated series is not listed, I'm gonna write a letter. And of course, it was because it was so great. I love that show so much. I mean, hey, people are probably in the comments right now asking about animated shows. Is there anything that might come or?
Yeah, no, we've been talking about it off and on. I mean, we even somewhere between then and now, we developed another series that I actually have my hands on all the material. Mm-hmm. So I actually have sort of going and doing cell animation. Pretty much all the work has been done with all the character designs, the voice. We recorded all the voices and everything. Obviously, we'd have to do some editing and some sound mixing and stuff. But so the question is, when we get ready to go into the city with Spawn the movie.
Mhm.
What are we offering, right?
Yeah.
Are we just offering the movie and it's like they don't get their hands on anything else? Are we offering them that and then TV because they're going to want to do live action with a carve out for animation? Are we saying that we don't even want to offer them live action? They should go straight to animation? Because I mean, I probably once a month get a studio to come saying, hey, we'll do the animation again. Right? I think, I mean, if we came out with animation with the technology today in animation, I think Spawn again would crush, right? And Spawn the animated show would crush because it was a little bit of a pioneer back then, right? Nobody was really sort of doing true sort of adult animation back then, and it was probably one of the things that sort of jolted people. So we had, you know, a strong character, and we were doing something nobody else was. So, you know, people who might not have ever even heard of Spawn, but just watch TV, were going, wow, I've never seen animation like that.
Yeah.
So I think that still resonates today, that it would work, that sort of retro coming back, you know, the reboot of it would be super cool.
Awesome. Yeah. And look at Invincible, the Image comic turned into an animated show on Amazon. My wife watched the entire season. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, you're watching this? And she was really into it. And I was like, she would never watch this. So I think there is an audience out there that doesn't know they're an audience yet.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that's interesting is talking to Robert Kirkman, the guy, you know, who created Walking Dead and the Invincible. And he said that, you know, it was a little bit of a push sometimes, even when you're at the studio and they're paying for it, you still have to keep telling them why they should like you. And he was saying it was a little bit of a push from Amazon's side, you know, like, you know, animation with a lot of blood, you know, you can imagine, you know, people who aren't comic book collectors or a little bit older are trying to get their head wrapped around it. But once it came out and they sort of saw the reaction to it, then they're all smart enough to know, good executives know, that it doesn't have to be your cup of tea personally. You just have to acknowledge the data. And if the data says lots of people are watching it and that's good for business, then you just get out of the way, right? Which is why very quickly they announced season 2 and 3. So good for Robert.
Yeah, very exciting. Okay, before we go, and I know you're a busy guy, the last thing I just want to touch on is the McFarlane. We got to talk about the McFarlane toys, because every time I'm on social media, the Todd Instagram and the Twitter, there's all kinds of new announcements, new figures, new properties coming out. What can people, collectors or people that are into certain things, what can they look for? Maybe what aren't you guys doing? Because I know you're doing something with The Witcher, and they've got all these DC stuff coming out.
Yeah. Actually, last week we had we were the #1 action figure out in Amazon. Right, we traditionally have more of our figures in the top 50, top 100 on the Amazon top 100 than any company on the globe. So, you know, the people, and that's because the geeks know where to go, right? They don't have to go to sort of brick and mortar. They'll just sort of have somebody drop it off at their place. So the DC multiverse stuff is doing really well for us. And that's with no movies, right? Because again, all those big movies got moved. You know, and we'll be coming into next year with, you know, a Batman movie. Woo! Shoot, if you think we're selling now, just wait till we got a Batman movie backing us up. But part of it is, for the DC multiverse, is us going and doing characters, some of them just doing them, I think, better than had been done before. But I think even more important, just doing a lot of characters that have been done before. That, you know, that people didn't want to spend the time, that other people have been doing the properties in the past, you know, just want to stay with the core characters, right? You know, your classic Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, Flash, Wonder Woman, and keep it tight. And we've really sort of broadened it out. We were a little nervous at first to see whether the appetite would be there as you expand it out to the edges of it. But the answer is yes, because there seems to be a bit of a pent-up demand for people, especially who collect the comic books, that are saying, oh my gosh, nobody's ever made that one. Oh my gosh, nobody's ever made that one or that one or that one. And then there's just the simple piece of toy making, which is if it just looks good in package, it doesn't matter what the brand is. It doesn't matter what the name is. If you price it at a good price and it looks super cool, people will react to it, right? Two things they'll react to. A, super cool. I mean, I'm not even talking about geeks now. I'm talking about, like, look at when you were 8, you knew what was cool and what wasn't in your brain. You knew that there was like 3 robots and they said rank them. You could do it that quick, right? Because you're like, no, that's the coolest of the 3 robots. So if we do stuff that looks visually appealing, people may buy it just for that one piece. Oh, and by the way, one more component. Give them a lot of plastic. Give them a lot of plastic. This is the piece that sometimes I don't know why I got to repeat myself to Fortune 500 companies. You know, it's like, dudes, if you give them a fair price, high quality, and a lot of plastic, you're going to sell it. Now, if you add the last piece, which is a AAA brand name on top of it, what are you talking about? It's a home run. That's a home run. But I'm telling you, even without the AAA brand, if you give them those other 3 components, which is how the Spawn toys got off the ground and survived for all those years, and that my business has been thriving ever since, because it's like you guys get all the big giant licenses, but you know what? I'm just going to put out quality stuff and at a fair price, and I'm going to sell it. Oh, and by the way, if any of you ever were to give me a little piece of one of those big brands, right? Watch us. Oh, we got the NFL. Oh, now we got DC. What are you talking about? Like, give me Spider-Man and the X-Men and the Avengers. I'd sell that too. Like, they're not doing anything that we can't do. They just have a bigger apparatus and they've given a bigger guarantee that I can't compete with, right? I mean, but shoot, I could sell Spider-Man. So I could sell Star Wars. What are you talking about? Like someday, maybe.
One thing you're guaranteed to get if you pick up a McFarlane toy is quality. It's just chef's kiss, Todd. It's the details all there. It's awesome stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
What we try to do is look at what people are putting out at 40, 60, $80 and say, can we deliver it close to 20? And sometimes you can't quite get there, but sometimes you can. and I think people notice. They go, what? I go on the internet and there's one that looks sort of the same. It's $80. Like, shit, here, like $20. I think, like I said, quality at a fair price, you can make a living. So it's why you know, Spawn has been $2.99 forever. I may be one of, if not the only guy left in the business whose comic book is $2.99, because I just think letting the consumer have $1 off, and in some cases $2 off, because a lot of the Marvel and DC books are now $4.99. Mine are $2.99. I think that I think it matters. All things being equal, they'll say, hey, I like that character and I like that character, but you know what? He's giving it to us for $1, $2 off. I'll take his, right? No harm, no foul.
You're all about the people, Todd, and we appreciate you that.
No,
I
used to be 16 with no money in my pocket, and so almost every decision I make is I rechannel that kid, and I go, okay, what would the 16-year-old Todd have done with this in front of him? At $80, he would have loved it, but he would never been able to buy it, right? And it's like, man, I would have frustrated the 16-year-old Todd. I don't want to frustrate that kid. So how do I keep it as reasonable price as possible and not put out so much stuff that it's impossible to collect it, right? So obviously the first issue of all the comic books coming out are going to be a little bit elevated, but then after that, they're all going to $2.99. All my monthly is going to be all $2.99.
I like the sound of that. Well, Todd, we thank you for so much. We thank you for Spawn. We thank you for Venom. We thank you for the spaghetti webbing. We thank you for making Mary Jane a hot supermodel. At least I do. But I most of all want to thank you for your time today and joining us here on Watch Mojo's Poppin the Culture. Todd, thank you very much. We'll be watching.
All right. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. I want to thank Todd McFarlane for all his time and spilling all those juicy details with us. And of course, Ricky Tucci for joining in the fun this week. And thank you for watching. Till next time, I'm Mr. Hollywood, and I've been Poppin the Culture.